Hey guys, how's it going? It's ShayTheCoach here. So my last video we talked about mindset and implementing an imperfect plan rather than creating a perfect plan and leaving it on the shelf, right? So now I couldn't wait. Here's a bonus video. The results of the resting metabolic assessment and the active metabolic assessment. So just to really quick to build a bridge, what we did is my body is in ketosis. So if you've been following me, thank you. I did a video on the metabolic systems and glycolysis and ketosis, okay? So ketosis is where in my body I've worked with a team to basically make it a fat burning machine, right? So basically 70 to 80% of my diet comes from fat. Yeah, that's right, I used a dramatic pause there. 70 to 80% of my diet comes from fat. The carbohydrates that I get come from mostly fiber, veggies, like leafy greens and certain veggies that I eat. The rest of it is protein. So when it comes to endurance sports and running, that's great news, because at some point, or most points, when you're in aerobic running, meaning in the presence of oxygen, the main source of fuel is fat. Cool, right? But what happens is after a certain amount of a heart rate, your heart rate goes up a certain amount, you turn into what becomes anaerobic training. So in the absence of oxygen. And that's when the body wants to use glucose and it wants to use glycogen or stored sugars. And when a body is in ketosis, there's really not a lot of glucose or carbs or sugars in there to burn. So what we did is we did these assessments, to ensure that I was burning all of this fat. And I did it at Lifetime Fitness Tempe. The head of metabolics there, his name's Chuck. My technician's name was Robert. And they said, wow, you are just burning fat left and right. I said, great, because that's my primary fuel source. That means it's working. So we validated that scientifically. You know, y'all saw the pictures with the mask hooked up to the machines, and that's what they tested. So that's perfect, right? So then what I wanted to know was, at what point does my heart rate burn the most fat? So we got that too. So now I can know what the bulk of my training, where my heart rate needs to be when I run. I also wanted to know, at what point does my heart rate get so high that my body's gonna kick into wanting carbs? At what point does my heart rate go into anaerobic in the absence of oxygen? So we found that out too. But here's the exciting part. Where people who are not keto adapted, right, who basically in an anaerobic absence of oxygen situation, where they start burning carbs, I don't. I am keto adapted. And so what the science showed and what the test with the masks showed, that even in an anaerobic fitness state, so when I'm like sprinting and huffing and puffing and in the absence of oxygen, my body still burned fat. So that is way cool. Can you tell? I'm so excited. So we created this protocol. Now this protocol is what I'm going to actually ask you to wait for next week. But isn't this so exciting? Like, here's the news. Here's what we have. So that is the bonus video today. And then also, based on the protocol, we added some supplementation, some fat supplementation, which I'll get into next week too. So just to recap, bonus video, we did the active metabolic, resting metabolic tests. We confirmed that I'm very well keto adapted, that my body burns fat at all levels of training in the presence of oxygen and in the absence of oxygen too. We figured out where my heart rate needs to be for the bulk of my training, and we also found out where my heart rate is when it kicks into the anaerobic system and what I need to do to supplement so that my body doesn't thud, or as they call it, bonking, right, when it goes into anaerobic, because even though it still burns fat, it needs a little bit of extra support because that oxygen is missing. Woohoo! So I've said enough. We'll see you next week.